I'm here as well.
Cool, thank you, Pete. Okay, we'll hand over to Anaru to welcome you properly. Thank you.
Tēnā no tātou. Haki roto haki waho ki te maria kokiri nei, ngā piki me ngā heke ko te rangi mari e tā tātou e rapu nei tia e mauri ora. He mihi ki te atua, he mihi ki te whenua, ara he mihi ki te katoa ki a Wanganui. Ko rātou, ko wehi atu ki tō te ārai, rātou ko whakawhetūrangi hia, rātou ko wehi atu ki te pō, haere atu rā. Ki atu ki te kāinga tūturu mō tātou tira tangata, no reira moi, whakangaro atu. Aui tira, kia tātou kua hoihui mai nei. Tātou kua hoihui mai nei, hui ata nei, hui topa nei, zoom nei. I ronga i te kaupapa kei Wanganui a tātou, tēnei te mihi atu ki a tātou katoa. Aira, ko tō tātou wai Maria, kia korua e raurangatira mā, a matua Pouroto, ara ko matua Pete, tēnei te mihi atu kia korua, mo te whakawātea mo te whakawātea wā, me kira, ki te tūhono mai, ki tō tātou nei wāhi, tukua i o korua ke wheako, me o korua ake au koranga, tēnei mea te kaupapa e whai anei e korua. Anei ahau, o te rā anei mātou, e tuku mihi atu nei ki a korua. It's a rather an esteemed privilege, I believe, for many of us to tune in this afternoon and bear witness to the mātauranga or the knowledge that you two will be sharing with us at this time. Me actually find it rather humbling being given the opportunity to acknowledge the both of you on behalf of us all, and undoubtedly this will be a neat experience for many of us, gaining insights into the kaupapa, into the initiatives that the both of you follow or pursue with passion, if you will. So no reira, mai tauranga mō ana whānui kia ngā te awa, iwi manene, o te rā kia koe me tō whānau e Pete, anei te mihi kia kōrua, so ka tuku te rākau kia kōrua i te wānei. Hand the mana over to you both, no reira huri noa, kawa wata noa, tēnā koutou, kia ora mā tātou katoa, kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Anaru.
Tihei mauri ora ki te whaiau ki te ao marama. I'd like to acknowledge the creator of all things. Ki te maunga tipua mauao, e tū. To the ancestral mountain Mauao in all its majesty is the sheltering place that brings unity today for us gathered here today. We call to you. Te moana o tauranga, karanga mai. I whakatau ki te ake nei, taku tupuna tū te reinga, i nā au ka mate, tanu mea ahau ki taha roa, kia rongo e ahau ki te tangi o te moana. Acknowledge Tauranga Moana, the water space, and its significance in relation to the three waka that landed there, in particular Takitimu, Mātātua and Tainui of four waka and Te and also the Endeavour, 1769. Wēnei waka wēnei I tau mai ki reira. Anaru, te mihi mai, karanga mai kia māo ko Pete. O kurahinga, o te moana o tauranga. Ara, ko ngā tirangi nui, wahau tēnei ko te uri o te piri rākau, tēnā taha oku, wahau tēnei ko ngai te rangi, te wahanga kia tūkai rangi, wahau tēnei ara ko ngā tipukenga, te wahanga kia te tāwera. O reira mihi mai, māo ko Pete tēnei ko tai mai. So I'd like to acknowledge, of course, the tangata whenua and the iwi there, and also acknowledge my connections there. Ngāti rangi nui, I'm of Pirirākau descent, and my marae there is Tū Te Reinga. Ngai Te Rangi, I'm also from that iwi, also from Hunga Toroa at Matapihi, from the hapu of Tūkairangi. And of course, Ngāti Pukenga from Whitu Marae, and my connection to Te Tāwera hapu. Nō reira karanga mai, e te puari, social link, mihi mai, karanga mai, patai mai. Te kawe mai ngā kōrero ki a koutou, e pānaki I te toi Ahorangi. Mao ko Pete tēnei, ko tae mai. Reira, kei te tautoko hia, ngā puropura ki ki runga i tō tātou whaia, te mohaere. Ko ia tēnei, kua puropura ki ia e koutou, Mao ko Pete tēnei e tautoko ana. So just to the chair and to the board, we recognise all our distinguished dead, and particularly this time, whaia mohaere, and all the things that have been said to acknowledge your contributions there amongst you all. Okay, with that, we are really pleased to be here today, and we're certainly excited to share with you about Te Toi Ahorangi. So, i runga iwe nei kōrero, so with that, piti hono, tātai hono. We acknowledge those who have passed on. Haere, farewell, haere, farewell, haere. Piti hono, tātai hono, e te puari, koutou e anuru, ko mihi ngia mai nei maa ko Pete, ko tae mai ki konei tēnei rā. Thank you for the warm welcome. We receive that as it's been given in warmth and love and care. Kia te manu o tēnei ao, what is the greatest thing? Te tangata, this people, te tangata. Kia ora tātou katoa. Just koe mutu ngā kōrero, anaru hea, koe mutu Mao ko Pete, te wahanga mihi mihi, so kua ea tērā. So, me nā e pai ana, me timata wā māua kōrero I nāia tonu nei. So, Tessa, I'm just, did you receive my PowerPoint presentation?
Yes.
Okay. Pete, we're really, both of us are really pleased to be here. And Pete can follow up after me. Pete, if that's okay. I'd just really like to set the context, and I'd like to, with Pete, acknowledge again Amohaere's contribution in the social link. And yeah, we're pleased to get Mum back home over here and happy with the things that we've been up here in Pakatani. So I've got a presentation that I'd like to present very quickly to you, but to be give you an in-depth in terms of the whole importance of Te Toi Ahorangi, and really the relationships, like what Amohaere is explaining about the dual sort of moral partnership in relation to tangata tiriti and tangata whenua, the whānau hapu marae and iwi, and our treaty partners, whether it be with the DHB, Social Link, the councils, regional council, whatever government organisation or any organisations that are wanting to develop a meaningful relationship. And I'd just like to acknowledge the chair, and I think some of the principles, Pete, you would have heard, really echoing some of the principles too that we had to engage and be guided and led by our elders, our leaders of our tribal authorities, sub-tribes, our marae, in guiding us in terms of developing those principles and what that actually means. So I'll start there, and yeah, I'll be about 10 minutes, Pete. But I've got there. So the first part, I was the former deputy chair for the Māori Health Runanga for 17 years, and I was then appointed chair for the last nearly 4.5, 5 years. I've just resigned as of last year. I'd also like to acknowledge the exciting changes, the board and Pete. I'd like to acknowledge Sharon Shea, just been appointed the chair of the new Māori Health Authority. So that talks about treaty and Waitangi relationships. So it's really good to see that throughout sectors within health itself, these things are becoming a reality. One of the important things is to always have And I've learned that from my parents. I've learned that from my elders, and I've been privileged to work within Tauranga Moana and here and right across, and also in many other tribal settings, that we must have the right people alongside us. I think the establishment of the relationships is very key, as Pete knows, as I know, and that the kaumātua, the leadership of a chairmanship in relation to a board and maybe a chief executive officer's position, they're very key. But it's actually in the paradigm of Māori society and Māori leadership. It's actually being able to be safe in knowing who those people really are. The ahika, the ones that are at home, the kanohikitea, the ones that are seen there amongst the people. So, for example, the late Kihi Ngātai was the undisputed rangatira of Ngaiterangi and the Moana. And say, for example, for the tribal authority, Charlie Tawhia is and still is the chairman. So there's two different leadership roles. So in terms of establishing those relationships, it's the identifying the kaumātua and the tribal leadership throughout the Bay of Plenty, and they will guide us in terms of that whole process. So that's the first point I'd like to make. Second point, that with that established, that's why you've got the Ahorangi kaumātua group, Pete, that's within, as we know, within the secondary care services within the hospital. They are such a committee that does represent in the eastern side of the Bay of Plenty, the kaumātua and tribal leadership. Secondly, then that will enable us to have direct access to the whānau hapu and the marae and the iwi. So we know, and with that protection, with that sort of guidance, when we're engaging in those Treaty of Waitangi relationships, when we're engaging in whānau hapu and iwi forums, then we actually go with a safety protection around us with the elders and the leadership, but also because they're so well known throughout, it clears the way for us. And it actually shows that, and the Bay of Plenty District Health Board has done this, that we have a strong and meaningful and real relationship with whānau hapu iwi, marae, and Māori. The third point I'd like to mention is engagement has to be based on the following principles. So just if we could, the following principles, can everyone see them? And the following principles are key because it's really those principles that have established Te Toi Ahorangi as beginning points in terms of, so the engagement must be based on whanaungatanga. So having genealogy connections to the local marae, the local hapuan people does open doors and does help, having that direct link with them. So the whakapapa connections were key. So that's why the kaumātua, the elders, were able to open the doorway for us, because they had those direct relationships to the people, to the heart of the people, and providing the leadership that's required. The leadership in terms of manakitanga, how to look after and provide a cultural safety approach that everyone is safe with. Aroha, being unconditional, without prejudice, in terms of the engagement and how we do that, and trusting, I suppose, the process, trusting the process from a Māori point of view, because we are engaging in a Māori environment based on traditional Māori leadership. Being directed by the people with guidance and direction from our kaumātua, our rangatira, our tohunga, and our ariki, and our elders. Okay? All right, so that's an important part in terms of any relationship, is getting those basic principles of engagement understood. Okay? Next part. Engaging in the right environment. So as Pete knows, and as a Mohaere knows, when we established the Toi Ahorangi process, we had to ensure that we were going into their environment. We weren't inviting them to come to our environment. We were actually going into the environment of the marae, or anywhere that they asked us to go, to be guided by them. And that included, a lot of the facilitation, as Pete will remember, is done in te reo. So it has to be all these it's done with karakia. It's done with openness, and all people are invited and allowed to be part of that process at the marae. And then with karakia in the beginning, karakia at the end, everyone's voices are respected and heard. You may disagree, but there's always a respect in terms of our views to find a way that everyone is happy with. And then we finish with kai. Okay? So, and as I said, the freedom to express ourselves in a respectful way and communicate the leadership interaction. And that all whānau hapu iwi, when we developed the Toi Ahorangi, were engaged from Bowentown, Maingakuri Whare, e Te Hiro, all the way down to Rotten Point, Cape Renai. So, importantly, the right environment and making sure that we didn't miss anyone out, that everyone was included, because in the end, the whole engagement and the leadership, it's all about ownership. That the ownership of that also had to come from the people. So the right environment, kapai, Ngaropo or Io model of care. So within those engagements through our kaumātua, the Māori community, and we also learned the model that each of the whānau hapu agreed to, because we've got 200 marae there, we've got 18 iwi, it's huge. And the Māori Health Runanga was successful in doing it, establishing it because of this approach. And it's been good, strong and enduring relationship since that we established the runanga. The principles of what developed the Toi Ahorangi model has been these principles. We had to Ngaropo model of care. We had to find models of principles that each of the iwi agreed to. Because, Ngai Tarangi will have their way and all their 24 hapu. Ngāti Ranginui will have their way and all their 12 hapu. Ngāti Pukenga will have their way, and all their 8 hapu, and so forth. So that you can imagine, we had to be guided and through our engagement with what are the principles that could provide a cultural framework that would sit alongside the clinical framework, so that we could provide Toi Ahorangi, optimum wellness and well-being in all levels of health provision. From a cultural perspective, and these are the principles here, and to the clinical approach as well. Manatua, so there's the spiritual dimension. Mana whenua, where we come from, the land, location. Mana tipuna, our cultural and spiritual identity. Mana tangata, who we carry with us, who we are, our families, our hapu, our sub-tribes, our iwi, our tribes and our waka, our canoe, our marae. Mana reo, having each, the key is that each of these 18 iwi and all their hapu and marae, that their voice is being heard. The DHB has its voice and it has its mandate in terms of providing the best service delivery in terms of secondary care services for everybody. And so we have to enable that voice with the DHB voice, whānau hapu iwi marae, to be also included as one voice in the decisions that we make. Mana motuhake, it's so the word motuhake means to cut off or to sever. Hake means any barriers or impediments that will not enable us to empower whānau hapu iwi marae to be heard, but not only just to be heard, but their decision making to be paramount in terms of the overall decision making. That's what mana motuhake is about. Mana rangatira is, well, who has the power of veto in terms of the final decision? In the treaty relationship, both partners are equal. Therefore, both partners must make that decision together. So Ngaropo no Io model was actually the original sort of, I suppose, framework of principles where the Toi Ahorangi began, and it didn't come from the DHP, it actually came from our queer, korua, kaimātua, rangatira, whānau hapu iwi, and our Māori people. Okay, next one. Hope this is helping. And then from that, the Māori Health Runanga model, then the Māori Health Runanga was established. So it was the first time that this DHP of ours, in true treaty partnership, was able to establish. No one's ever done this before across this region, but because of the kaumātua support, because of the DHP and its approach in terms of the Treaty of Waitangi, and also allowing each voice to be heard and supporting one another in the approach, we were very, very privileged to have that happen, and it was achieved and done. It's just wonderful. This was the catalyst for the creation of He Pouoranga, is basically the pou, the pillars, and you've seen them, mana atu, mana tupuna, mana whenua, mana tangata, mana reo, mana motuhake, mana rangatira. What are the pillars of health combined together that leads us from unwellness and sickness, secondary care, unwellness as well, clinical unwellness, spiritual unwellness, physical unwellness, mental unwellness, to achieve optimum wellness and well-being. Hence, we redefined that in terms of, and it became known as He Pouoranga. And basically, the spirit, I suppose, and the soul of Te Toi Ahorangi is He Pouoranga. And that's when we collectively together developed Te Toi Ahorangi, both for the DHP. We had to go back out again, and we engaged well over 600 people in that process. You know, there are many leaders that help. There's not just one person, there's too many to name. But I think, you know, Peter and I, being part of that whole process, can represent all of those today in terms of those many people that were part of that whole process in the development of Te Toi Ahorangi. Te Toi means to reach the uppermost, I suppose the zenith, the pinnacle, and aho, you know, actually means it means the cord, rangi, that connects us to the universe. So with all those pillars that I mentioned earlier, from Ngaropo no Io, then to He Pouoranga, and then to Te Toi Ahorangi. And I would just like to acknowledge the treaty relationship that it has made that a success for the Māori Health Runanga as the outgoing chair last year, and as the deputy chairman for 5 years and the chair for nearly 4 years. I've seen it grow and develop, and it is something that we're very proud of. I think that's probably, is there another slide there, Tessa? Maybe that might be it.
No.
Oh, just in closing, the Treaty of Waitangi principles underpin the relationship, of course, and we have an MOU, then we have a terms of reference that we work by, and that's underpinned by the principles of the Tiriti o Waitangi as referred, and most of you are familiar with that. Pete can extend on our behalf a bit more in detail what that means, because it is a relationship where we participate together. At times we may not agree, but we come back and we discuss and we keep going till there's a consensus and that we're happy about that. So there's the full engagement of the 18 iwi representatives who are selected by the marae and hapu. So when they sit on the Māori Health Runanga, they are the Treaty of Waitangi representation for all Māori right across the region. So, and whatever discussions we have in any health issue, that's what participation is all about. And it's the same with any Māori issues that come forth. We have that same engagement as well. Protection, it's protecting the health. It's the mauri, the life force and the unwellness to wellness, from kahupo, from unwellness to toiora, to optimum wellness and well-being. So ours is to protect our resources. Ours is also to protect our people in terms of the best health care that we can provide, and cultural, and the Treaty of Waitangi relationship which underpins that. Partnership is in everything that we do, from the governance level, which is the Māori Health Runanga, and then we have Pete and his team. We have the executive committee of both the chair, deputy chair of the Māori Health Runanga, and the chair and deputy chair of the district health board with our chief executive. And so there's that level of discussion and decision making. And then the board, both boards meet also to discuss any projects and to discuss any issues that we need to work through together in the Treaty of Waitangi governance approach. And then all of Pete's team also attend that as well, so that the operations are very clear. So there's no confusion, that everyone's clear, that everyone has input at that level as well, and so that we can work together in terms of what we're going to achieve. And I think lastly, that these principles underline for us the way in which we look after and protect each other in our partnership together. I think that's probably all for me at this point in time. I hope that Pete and I, this is what we've come up with, my first part of my presentation, and Pete will take you through. And Pete, if you want to utilise any of the presentation, it's there as well. Thank you so much. Look, I'm the chairman of the Ahorangi Kurakapapa Māori School. I'm going to be meeting the Ministry of Education. You can see I'm following the footsteps of my mother, so so I'm going from one hui to the next. So I'm hoping, Pete, that's going to be helpful. Just setting the foundation, and our presentation there is there, Pete. We hope that might help and give some guidance with Social Link moving forward. And again, and I do thank you for your warm welcome to the chair and to all the trustees. Pete, lovely to see you. You're doing a fantastic job. And I was very privileged to be part of the panel when we appointed you as our CEO. Tēnā koutou, tēnā koutou, kia ora tātou katoa.
Anaru, can you just, or Wiremu either, can you just say thank you so much to Pouroto? Thank you from me, Pouroto. That was so interesting and informing. And just a quick thank you before we go on to Pete, seeing as you're going.